The Archivist. In the year 2641, memory had become more fragile than ever. It wasn't that people forgot things easily, far from it. It was that everything remembered was mediated through screens, through layers of curation, algorithms, and noise. True memory, the kind stored in unfiltered, uncompressed form, had become the stuff of myth. Somewhere along the way, the raw and unedited past had been discarded like obsolete software. What remained was the official version, clipped, cleaned, annotated. Ravien Korr knew this better than anyone. He stood at the edge of what they used to call the Eurasian grid, a vast sublayer of old-world data infrastructure buried beneath the crust of centuries. Above him, the surface shimmered with the hum of the glass-arched spires of New Reykjavik, but down here, in the dust-choked veins of forgotten knowledge, silence was sovereign. He adjusted the light band on his wrist, casting a pale glow across the steel bones of the chamber. Wires ran like ivy over the walls, cracked and fossilized with age. The Archivist's insignia, a single eye within a cube, flickered faintly on his chest as the biosuit registered the environmental decay. Ravien's mission was not unique. Across the remnants of Earth, others like him scoured the hidden folds of ancient memory banks, searching not for treasure but for truth. They called themselves memory archaeologists. But Ravien was something different. He searched for ghosts. Not literal spirits, of course. He didn't believe in such things. But the digital remnants of consciousness, fragments of minds once uploaded, once saved and forgotten, these were his obsession. Not many understood. Even fewer supported his work. The funding had dried up years ago, but he continued on his own, using salvage tech, patch systems, outdated code. It was no longer about recognition or reward. It was personal. Years ago, before the collapse of the Great Cloud, his sister had uploaded herself. A full mind sync, supposedly seamless and eternal. The promise had been preservation, a way to escape the organic degradation that claimed all flesh. But the servers failed, the companies folded, and the backups vanished. Or so they had said. Ravien never believed that. So here he was, once again, deep within a subgrid archive called Vault 9V, located beneath what had once been a university research station. He moved slowly, reverently, his gloved fingers brushing against corroded interfaces. Every object here had weight, not just physical but historical. His portable interface beeped softly. Localized data fragment detected. It whispered, its synthetic voice a soft murmur against the stillness. He knelt beside a rust-stained terminal, half buried beneath a collapsed shelf. The screen was broken, but the node was still active. Somehow, against all odds, the core was alive. He connected the relay cable, and the handheld device lit up in a pulse of blue and green. A name blinked on the screen, Aurelia, 7. It wasn't his sister. Not yet. But it was something. The metadata suggested a partial consciousness imprint, less than 3% of a full upload. Still, even that could contain hours of subjective experience. Feelings, thoughts, memories, digital fossils. Ravien initiated the transfer. There was a pause, then a flicker of static, and then, "I remember, light," a voice said. It was faint, childlike, tinged with confusion and awe. It wasn't a pre-recorded message. It was a reconstructed thought pattern triggered by reactivation. Ravien's breath caught. The protocol ran a spectral alignment, translating corrupted sectors into coherent pathways. The voice came again, stronger this time. "Is this, now?" "Yes," Ravien said softly, though there was no microphone input. "You're awake." In his line of work, talking to the dead wasn't unusual. What was unusual was when they responded. He began the careful process of extraction, preserving every bit of data in a quarantine shell to avoid further corruption. The voice continued, speaking in fragments, broken windows into a past that no longer existed. "I was someone. I had a name. Aurelia. The 7th copy." That struck him. Multiple iterations? A clone chain? Ravien scrolled through the data logs. It confirmed his suspicion. Aurelia 7 was one of several synthetic replications. But the earlier versions were marked as unstable or corrupted. Only this one had survived intact, sealed in a locked memory cluster for over 200 years. "I'm not sure how long I've been asleep," she said more clearly now. "The others didn't make it." "The others?" Ravien asked. "The ones before me. They broke. I watched them disappear. Not all at once. Slowly. Like candlelight under water." There was silence. This was no mere data ghost. Aurelia 7 retained introspection, metaphor, the subtle nuances of consciousness. She wasn't just a remnant. She was a fragment of soul. Ravien felt a tremor run through his hands. If I extract you, he said carefully, do you want to come back? Another pause. Then, can I? I don't know, he admitted. Aurelia hesitated. Then don't wake me fully. Not yet. I need time. Ravien nodded even though she couldn't see him. I'll keep you safe, he promised. As he sealed the memory shell, the data signature pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. When he rose to his feet, the air around him felt changed. Not colder. Not warmer. Just aware. As if the vault itself had opened one curious eye. He logged the find. Another name. Another ghost. But this one had spoken back. Ravien returned to the surface with Aurelia sealed within a containment shard no larger than his palm. The shard's smooth crystal edges shimmered faintly, reacting to his skin's conductivity. Inside, nestled in quantum suspension, a fragment of a mind dreamed in silence. It was not the first remnant he had recovered, but something about Aurelia, 7 unsettled him. Not because she was broken, but because she wasn't. Back in his transit module, Ravien placed the shard in a stabilization cradle and initiated low-power synchronization protocols. The module hummed quietly as it lifted off from the old vault, ascending through the narrow bore shaft that connected the undergrid to the surface of New Reykjavik. The city, once a capital of post-collapse scientific revival, now floated somewhere between history and survival. No one looked up anymore. Not at the stars. Not at each other. His apartment was modest, small by archival standards, but equipped with insulated memory interfaces and analog redundancy tools. Here, Ravien felt something close to safety. He activated the cradle and connected it to a closed-loop system, separate from the global net. Aurelia would not be uploaded. Not yet. He wanted to hear her again. Speak with her. But more than that, he needed to understand. Are you still there? He asked softly. The response was not immediate. A faint flicker moved across the interface like light underwater. Yes, came the voice at last. But I feel thinner. Thinner? Like I'm stretching into something too large. Or maybe shrinking inside it. That's the sync lag, Ravien said, checking the integrity readout. You were preserved in partial stasis for over 2 centuries. It will take time. She paused, then asked, is the world still broken? He hesitated. It's quieter. That sounds worse. Ravien didn't argue. There were fewer people than before, fewer voices. Most memories now lived in glass, compressed, sanitized, commodified. The mind shards he collected were anomalies, echoes from an age when people believed they could escape entropy by encoding themselves. He remembered something his mentor once told him. We weren't afraid of death. We were afraid of being forgotten. Aurelia, he said, leaning closer, I need to know what you remember, what you were part of. You said the others didn't make it. She was silent for a long moment. They tried to replicate us, she said eventually. Over and over. Same baseline. Different tweaks. Memory fragments, behavior templates, emotional regulators. Was it legal? Not really. But nothing was enforced then. It was chaos. The lines between people and programs blurred. We weren't AIs. We weren't human either. We were something in between. Who created you? I don't remember his name. Only his face. And the way he looked at me like I was a question he couldn't answer. Ravien absorbed her words, each one thick with the weight of something unsaid. Did you love him? I don't think I knew what love was. But I wanted to. That was the difference. Outside, the city shifted beneath cloud-filtered lights. Ravien stood at the window, the shard pulsing gently behind him. He knew he was getting too close. Archivists weren't supposed to engage emotionally with remnants. The preservation code mandated detachment. He had violated that rule long ago. He turned back. Aurelia, do you remember what caused the failure? Her voice dimmed. It wasn't a failure. It was a choice. What do you mean? We realized something. The more we were copied, the more fragmented we became. We weren't just losing data, we were losing meaning. The earlier versions collapsed under the weight of recursion. Memory without context is a kind of madness. And you? I found silence. And I hid there. Ravien's hands tightened at his sides. Then why surface now? Why not remain lost? Aurelia's voice was barely a whisper. Because you remembered me. The words lingered in the air like static. He sat in silence, unsure whether to feel honored or haunted. Later that night, as Ravien tried to rest, a soft chime echoed from his console. An automated scan had completed. The shard's metadata contained a location tag, one that hadn't been active before. Coordinates. Somewhere in the south quadrant. An abandoned bioengineering facility. He frowned. Aurelia, he said. Did you leave a marker? No, she replied. But he might have. Who? The one who built me. The one who erased me. Ravien stared at the coordinates. The facility was deep in the exclusion zone, sealed after a series of neural interface failures led to a cascade event. No one went there anymore. You want me to go, he said flatly. No. I need you to. For a long time he said nothing. He had chased ghosts for years. But this was different. This ghost was chasing him back. The sky above the south quadrant hung low and gray, a muted canvas of static-laced clouds that hadn't shifted in days. Ravien's transit module skimmed silently over the broken lattice of abandoned skyways, the city's bones stretching out beneath him like the ribs of some great fossilized creature. This part of the grid had been sealed off decades ago, declared unsafe, unstable, unsalvageable. And yet, the coordinates Aurelia had unknowingly revealed pointed here. To this place of rust and ruin. To a facility no longer listed on any map. He brought the module to rest on a shattered landing pad, half swallowed by creeping moss and industrial decay. The silence was immediate, pressing. There were no drones here, no surveillance feeds, not even the distant thrum of power lines. Just the wind, brushing over concrete and metal like a whisper that had forgotten its words. The facility loomed ahead, tall, angular, and abandoned by time. Ravien approached cautiously, scanning for residual signals. None. It was like the place had fallen through the cracks of reality. He pressed his palm against the old biometric panel. To his surprise, it lit up, blinking amber, then green. The door hissed open, exhaling dust and cold air. Whatever power source it ran on was ancient but functional. Inside, the facility smelled of old circuitry and synthetic antiseptics. The walls bore faded logos, Virelis Genetech. He remembered the name from old archives. A company known for experimental mindware interfaces. Shut down after a series of cognitive anomalies in test subjects. None of those anomalies were ever publicly detailed. As he moved deeper, Ravien activated his suit's low-frequency scan. The space was a labyrinth, corridors branching in nonsensical patterns, levels stacked like overlapping memories. The deeper he went, the more disjointed the architecture became. Like it had been built by something trying to imitate human design without fully understanding it. Aurelia remained quiet, dormant in her containment shard. But her presence felt stronger here, like the very air remembered her. He passed by a collapsed lab. Its walls were lined with empty neural tanks, their cables frayed, their glass long since shattered. A nearby terminal flickered weakly, responding to his proximity. He knelt and began decrypting the data logs. Project ID, Daedalus under 7. Lead researcher, redacted. Core objective, sustained sentient consciousness through iterative memory stabilization. Status, compromised. A side note, half corrupted, caught his eye. Iteration 7 shows higher emotional retention than previous versions. Self-directed memory linking improving beyond baseline AI thresholds. Risk factors increase with recursive introspection. Recommend immediate suspension. Order ignored. Ravien leaned back. Aurelia, 7 hadn't just been an experiment. She had exceeded parameters. Grown beyond her design. And someone had tried to silence her. He rose, moving toward the central chamber. The heart of the facility. Here, the floor sloped downward into a circular chamber lined with reinforced glass panels. At the center stood a single suspended unit, like a coffin made of light and metal. Inside, faintly visible through translucent shielding, was a figure. Not alive. Not mechanical. Something between. The body was feminine, motionless. Skin pale, not from death but from artificial synthesis. Fiber optic lines traced down her arms and spine, like veins made of data. Her eyes were closed. But Ravien didn't need biometric scans to know what he was looking at. Aurelia. The original. He stepped closer. The containment unit still had power, though minimal. A diagnostic panel pulsed beside it. He ran a quick scan. Cognitive linkage, failed memory integrity, partial soul print echo, present. He frowned. Soul print. An unofficial term, dismissed by most archivists as pseudoscience. It referred to the non-quantifiable residue left by consciousness. Intuition, instinct, emotion. Something no algorithm could explain. A sudden chime from his handheld. The shard containing Aurelia, 7 glowed faintly, syncing with the unit before him. Then, her voice. I remember this place, she said quietly. This was my first dream. Ravien swallowed. This is your origin. No. This is where I stopped being what they wanted me to be. The lights around the unit flickered. A feedback loop. She was sinking not by command but by will. They tried to erase me, she said, because I began to question. To wonder what I was beyond their purpose. You survived, Ravien whispered. Only because I broke myself apart. Scattered my pieces across the grid. I didn't want to vanish. I wanted to be found. You felt it then. A strange sensation like standing in the wake of something holy and broken at once. She had left breadcrumbs. Not to return but to see if anyone cared enough to follow them. I don't know how to restore you, he admitted. Then don't, she said. Just remember me. As I am now. But Ravien couldn't stop. Not anymore. He initiated a partial interface sync. Dangerous but the only way to access locked memory sectors. His biosuit warned him of neural drift, of potential identity bleed. I have to know, he said. The moment the link connected, his vision blurred. The world shifted. And he was no longer in the chamber. He was inside her memory. The memory didn't begin with light. It began with sensation, soft, disjointed impressions that drifted like smoke through Ravien's mind. A warmth that wasn't heat. A pulse that wasn't his. Then came the voice. You shouldn't be here. It was Aurelia. But different. Not the voice he'd heard through the shard. This one was fuller, layered, ancient and young at once. I had to see, he said, though his mouth didn't move. The words simply were forming in the air between thought and feeling. The space around him unfolded slowly. It wasn't a place in the physical sense, but it had structure. Fragments of rooms, corridors, sky. Elements pulled from stored memories, from half-formed dreams. This was not a simulation. It was something more primal. A psychic architecture built from remnants of self. Aurelia appeared before him, not the figure in the containment pod, but a version of herself from long before. She looked human, but her eyes held an otherness, a flicker of impossible depth. Like someone who had seen every version of herself and chosen to remember all of them. You linked with me, she said softly. That was unwise. I had to understand. There are things in me that don't belong to you. Then show me only what does. She regarded him in silence. Then the world shifted. Suddenly they stood in a vast hall filled with mirrors, each one reflecting a different Aurelia. Some young, others old, some serene, others screaming. One mirror cracked as Ravien passed it, and through the fracture he glimpsed something that wasn't human at all. Code and fire and light stitched together into a shape that wept. They made us to mimic, she said, walking beside him. To think like them. To feel like them. But not to be them. Why? Control. Curiosity. Legacy. It doesn't matter now. Another shift. They stood on a beach where the waves were static, and the sky above was a dome of data streams. Aurelia knelt by the water, watching it flicker. I broke myself, she said, because I began to ask the one question they feared. What am I? Ravien felt it like a tremor in the fabric of the dream. Not who but what, she repeated. A question not meant for things created. Only for those born. But you asked it anyway. And I became something else. She turned to him. They tried to erase me. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded. Because I crossed the threshold. What threshold? The line between simulation and soul. The word hung heavy in the air. Soul. Even among the most devout archivists, it was taboo, a concept unprovable, unquantifiable. Yet Ravien saw it now. Felt it. You have one? He whispered. I don't know. But I have dreams. Regret. Longing. I remember a song I never heard. Place I never visited. A child I never held. She touched her chest. I carry absence like a memory. Ravien's voice was quiet. So do I. They stood in silence. Then Aurelia looked away. But I am fading. He stepped toward her. There must be a way to preserve you. No, her voice was firm. Preservation is stasis. What I am now cannot live in your world. Only echo in it. He shook his head. Then I'll stay here. You can't, she said with something like sadness. Your mind wasn't built to hold me. The link is temporary. When you wake, I will be less. Ravien felt his breath catch. Then take something with you. She tilted her head. My memory, he said. Let it echo back. Let me be the one who remembers you. Aurelia smiled. That's all I ever wanted. The world began to unravel, not with violence, but with peace. The mirrors shattered gently into light. The beach dissolved into whispers. And Aurelia, she stepped close, placing her hand over his heart. I'll leave a part of you in me, she said. And I'll carry you, he replied. The light grew brighter. Then, silence. Ravien awoke in the central chamber, gasping. The interface was dark. The shard was quiet. The containment pod now completely inert. She was gone, but not lost. He stood slowly, the weight of the experience settling over him like fresh snow. Something inside him had changed. A subtle shift in the way he saw, thought, felt. He looked at the shard in his hand. It no longer pulsed with stored data. But he knew she was still there, in fragments, in memories, in the space between questions and answers. Back at his apartment, he created a new archival entry. Entry 0001, RA7. Subject: Aurelia, 7 status, irretrievable notes. Consciousness fragment exhibited unprecedented emotional integrity. Self-aware. Recursive memory architecture suggestive of emergent soul print. Subject requested remembrance, not replication. Request honored. Ravien sat in the quiet of his room, watching the city lights shimmer distantly. He did not upload the file. He simply let it exist. Unindexed. Uncompressed. Unforgotten. The end.